We're good now.
Yay! Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, hun. My husband's just like pressing the buttons for me while I'm back here. Set up my camera and my microphone.
How's everything sound?
All
Great.
good.
Sounds really good. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm so happy to have you guys. So I'll do all my podcasty things. I'll count myself down and then I will do my intro. And then I have a starter question for you, Sarah.
Sounds good.
Does that sound okay?
Yep.
Yay! Oh, thank you both for being here. Hopefully it wasn't too rushed today. I know you had a busy day, hey?
It was all good.
We're trying to
Good.
pick bridesmaids dresses.
Yeah, that's exciting.
And stressful.
And stressful. Yes, yes. Lots at play there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. I'm gonna count myself in and it's gonna sound really funny and it's all just like podcasty stuff, but here we go. Okay, so hello and welcome back to Bella Brave, everybody. I have a very special guest today. She's a friend of mine and her mom is with us as well. Today I'm excited to welcome my friend Sarah and her mom Cindy to Beyond Brave. Sarah's not only a multi-organ transplant recipient, but also an incredible advocate for organ donation, which if you know me, you understand why that is so important to me. We first met at Sick Kids, I think in 2023. I'll double check with Sarah when she's on. Where Sarah shared a special connection with my daughter Bella. I'm looking forward to hearing more about her journey, her passion for organ donation, awareness, and some beautiful memories from that time. So let's dive in. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Cindy.
Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for being here. Sarah, I wanted to start with you and your story. Could you tell us and the Brave community about yourself and what led you to needing a transplant?
Yeah, so I was born 5.5 weeks early in February of 97. And that began basically the journey of I had obstruction, basically, or how does it?
You had a twisted bowel.
I had a twisted bowel, which then led to my diagnosis later on of a genetic condition called MMIHS, or the long form of it of megacystic intestinal hyperperistalsis syndrome, which is a rare genetic condition, which basically affected my whole digestive tract, which then meant I needed a stomach, pancreas, liver, bowel transplant in order to survive.
Wow, that is a lot. And I understand every word of it too, being a medical mom myself. And you and Bella have a unique connection that you had your transplant at Sick Kids Hospital?
No, I had my transplant in London, but I spent the first 5 months of my life at Sick Kids.
Oh, okay. Right on, right on.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about how it came to be to get the call and like Cindy, jump in if you'd like
Mom,
to.
we're gonna have to jump in because I don't remember it.
Yeah, exactly. Like what was it like to get that call? I remember with Bella, her first call came at 2 years and that one didn't work out for her bowel transplant. And then the second one that did was had about a 3-year wait. What was everything like for you as a medical mom before and then getting that phone call?
It was tough because we had never been home. So she was born, spent the first 5.5 months in hospital, and we were at Sick Kids, and I expected that Sick Kids would fix her. And at that time, they didn't do transplants. The surgeon that did her transplant, who I eventually moved to Toronto, was in London, and we were told we had to move to London. So we went to London for our assessment, and were told it would be a very long wait, and went back to Sick Kids to wait because she was too unstable to come home. So I struggled with that because I really wanted her to sleep in her own bed, because we'd never been home with her, and that was a huge. You had to wait, so you just do it, but it was I found it challenging. And then we were told she would probably be over a year before she would even get a call, because as you know, waiting for a donor is a long journey. And Sarah decided she didn't like that odds, so she decided to get really sick and go into liver failure and put herself to the top of the transplant list, which was a challenge. The day before her transplant, she had gotten into a really critical situation. We had talked to the doctors about the next steps and where do we go and what it was going to look like, because they weren't sure she would survive to even get to the point of transplant. So it was definitely a challenge.
Oh wow. Okay, so if our listeners aren't aware, and according to like what I can remember with Bella being listed, there's three levels when you're listed in terms of like urgency, right? And so if you're really if the patient's going really downhill, they have multiple tiers that bump you right to the top of the list.
Yeah.
uh Bella fortunately was uh she had a lot of different things going for her that allowed her to wait at home for a transplant, but not a lot like you, Sarah, can't. They have to wait in hospital. What was the
Yeah.
time frame like between the liver failure and then okay, we have a donor?
So she went into liver failure. It started in May. We were assessed and listed in June, and then we were just kind of status quo, but things progressed really quickly. So by August, she started to bleed internally. So she put herself right to the top of the transplant list. And she was so sick that I had actually talked to the doctors about a DNR order. For people who don't know, that means do not resuscitate, because I didn't want them to be invasive with her. She was that sick. And luckily, the same day that we had made that decision, she got the call that there was organs at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So the surgeon that did her surgery said she probably has 7 to 10 days left to live, and they would not have been very pretty. They would have been in ICU on event.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's so difficult. I know that's my goodness, there's so many connections that Sarah and Bella have, and Sarah, I want your input on that later as well.
Yeah.
But one of them being like just like with Bella, I couldn't bring her home initially at all. She had a very long,
So
yeah.
I spent the first 10 months of my life in hospital. I didn't come home till
Yeah.
December 1st.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's ridiculously long. I know Bella had spent the first 2 years away, and it didn't have to do with waiting for a transplant at that time exactly. Bella was, as many know and as you know, she was born with a few rare conditions, but initially it was like figuring out she had Hirschsprung's and how do we fix that. And
Yeah.
then it was her first transplant, which was a bone marrow transplant.
Yeah.
And then later on down the road was the wait for the bowel transplant. So Sarah, knowing what your mom knows, because you were too young at the time,
Yep.
what's your perspective on what your mom had to go through, and how have you two like either connected or bonded or helped each other?
The way that we more like she's taught me how to be an advocate now that I'm an adult, that like yes, doctors will say no because they don't understand what this all is with all my medical stuff. So sometimes you have to be a little bit more like, no, like I need to do this. Like, especially like because my small town hospital, like, yes, they know me, but sometimes you get different doctors that don't know us. So like every once in a while, if I go in for IV hydration, they're like, well, we need to do blood work first. No, no. I'm gray, I'm dry, IV fluid, and trust me, within 24 hours, I'm going to be back to normal. Like, just listen to me. I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for almost 28 years. Like, I know that, like, I'm gray, I'm dusky, I'm dry. Like, I don't need blood work. I don't need to be poked and prodded. Like, my blood work's going to tell you I'm going to need it anyway. So I'm just telling you now. Like, these are my signs and symptoms. Just do that for me. And then, like, they pretty much know that, like, mom and I know it. So, like, we're only there because we can't do it ourselves anymore. Like mom and I only now go to the hospital, merge basically, or my family doctor if it's something we can't figure out at home and we need antibiotics or meds. Most of the stuff we can pick we can.
Yeah, yeah. Did you have many complications post surgery,
Nah.
or did the first
It was the
24?
first, the first 5 years were rocky.
Hospital bags
We
packed.
had about 8 helicopter rides out of Coburg to London because we live in a small town hospital. So they were really good at being like, yep, this is out of our department, off you go, because they knew time was important. Hydration was a huge issue for her when she was little, because she had an ostomy post-transplant. So there was a lot of that, and getting her to eat and do things that she should have done as an infant that she didn't do. So there was a lot of learning from that as well. So I think there was a lot of times that we just had medical bags and bags packed in the closet because, as you totally understand, you never know what your day looks like, and they change on a dime.
Yeah, 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 all the time. That's exactly how we're just like we're twinning right now, for sure. For most of our life, we have so many connections that way. And if a lot of our listeners don't understand what an ostomy is, um, it's where you have Bella had two ostomies at one point. She had an ostomy her whole life, but it's where they bring your colon or your small intestine to the front of your abdomen area, and then you have a bag or a pouchy or whatever you like to call it.
Yeah.
Bella always liked to name her devices. We would call her. I don't know if you did this, Sarah. You can let me know if you did, um, but or if you did, Cindy, for her. But I would always call Bella Bella 3.0 because she had all these amazing features. She had her central line. Some people might have had a port, and then she had her G tube, and
Yeah.
then she had her ostomy. So it was
Yeah.
like,
So I
yeah,
I had a central line for years, and then
yeah.
I had a feeding tube, which I just got rid of like 2 years ago.
Oh wow.
And that was getting it rid of 2 years ago was a whole new like dynamic. I think I was like, okay, now what? Like life is, I think I said to mom, I'm like, new normal life? Because I'm used to a feeding tubes. Now what? Like now, like there's nothing attached to my side anymore. Like this is really like every once in a while I'm like, wait a second, there's nothing there because it's
Yeah, yeah.
gone.
Bella used, I know a lot of people get confused. Her feeding tube, there was quite a long period of time from the moment she was one that she needed it for feeding.
Yeah.
But then there was also a lot of times with her bowel disease, like she needed it for venting. Did you use yours for venting as well, or just?
Before her transplant, it was used for venting.
Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah.
was a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I was,
it's a Sarah thing. She has a
I have a
sweatshirt.
sweater that says it's a Sarah thing you won't understand that I wear to all my clinics.
oh, that's perfect.
Yep,
That's
it's a Sarah thing you won't understand. Just let it roll. Just
yep,
just
yep, let it go.
accept it.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say earlier, you would put it really well. Like you are an incredible advocate for organ donation, and I
Mhm.
wanted to ask what fuels that passion, especially as we're coming up to April here right away, which is Organ Donation Awareness Month.
What fuels it is more my story about how like as I grow, it's been growing with me. So
Hmm.
being able to like add different things that I'm more grateful for now throughout the years. But then also knowing like other transplant recipients and being able to share their stories and like past recipients who have passed away but still carry on their legacy and be like, look, like yes, they're not here now, but like this is how much organ donation has impacted this person's life. They've lived 23 years, 24, like they've lived on and on and on because of organ donation. And just being able to share like with people my age or even younger, like my brother's age or even younger, and sometimes even older seniors now that I've gotten into my Coburg area, like into Coburg more. A lot of people are only used to like hearing about signing the cards and they don't realize it's online anymore. So like by
Yeah,
sharing more info and getting people more aware, especially the younger generation who are
yeah,
starting to get their driver's license and stuff like that, it's able to do it that way because yes, I'm a little bit older than them, but they can kind of relate more and be like, look, like yes, it's a small simple thing, but like you're saving someone's life down the road, and it one person saves 8 lives. Like you never really understand that big impact. One person can save 8 lives, which in the long run doesn't seem huge, but it's huge. Like it that one sign is huge.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the advocacy is ongoing. And thank you for
Mhm.
everything you're doing. It's amazing to have recipients like you that you're young, but you've it's been so long since your multi-organ transplant, and the hope and the inspiration that brings to so many little kiddos out there and other medical moms out there is like huge for everybody involved. Um,
Mhm.
let's go back to when you became aware of Bella. Can you tell us about that and why you wanted to connect with her?
I became aware of Bella when I think someone, like a family friend, shared like a post that she was waiting, like that she was waiting for her organ transplant. I was like, oh, like what? I knew of her, like I knew of her story, I knew of her hunchback, like the all the rare diseases and stuff like that. But I was like, oh, she's waiting for a transplant. I think it was around Be a Donor Month anyway, so it kind of worked out. I'm like, huh, there's another person that we can start sharing their story, and hopefully it can help. Like, yes, I'm small town, but like it can spread, and hopefully like they get the call for Toronto and stuff like that because I knew where you guys were at that point, and it's like But like it was like, okay, like what kind of transplant? So then I was starting to research more and more and more and be like, oh, it's an intestinal transplant. Wait a second, she's gonna be like me, kind of like
Yeah.
let's see how I can help in a way from social media by sharing your story and say, look, like this little girl's in Toronto, she's waiting, like this is what we need to help. Like someone help. Like someone just I don't know who, but someone helped by sharing and getting someone connected with her to save her life.
Yeah. And that means so much to me, and I'm sure the entire organ donation community, for people like you that do that, but specifically for Bella, it was the biggest thing that lifted her spirits to see other kiddos or like older like friends like you that had
Yeah.
been through what she had been through. That meant so much to her, and it just the day that you came to meet her and you brought her a
The day
gift.
I came to meet her.
Yeah, yeah. That
Uh,
meant so much. Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say you gifted Bella the book, The Aunt Who Needed a Transplant. And I
mhm.
wanted you to share with our listeners why this resonated with you so much.
So that story resonated with me so much because my surgeon, Dr. Bill Wall Atkinson, or Dr. Bill Wall, who
Mhm.
did my transplant in London, who's now retired, actually wrote that story for kids Bella's age who didn't understand, or even Waylon's age, who didn't
Yeah.
understand the process of transplant. It had pictures and it was in a simpler context with pictures that went step by step of being sick to listed to getting the call to getting the transplant to now life after
It goes through a really good process to help
process.
the younger ones, yeah,
Yeah.
understand it. Yeah, it's really sweet. Do you still have it? I think it's so special to have such a deep connection with the doctors that's like ongoing. Do you still have some pretty special relationships with your physicians?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Somewhat.
yeah.
Yeah. So
They're with you for so long, right?
they're with me for so long and they now love to see me grow up. So every once in a while they're like, how you going? What's new?
Yeah,
What's I was like, oh, okay.
yeah, yeah. So what sort of impact when we got to meet that day, what sort of impact did that have on you and your journey?
It was kind of like it was definitely exciting to meet Bella and see her in person, even though she was a very uh how do we put it? Energetic
Yeah.
was the word I was gonna put it. Shy and then energetic once I showed her the book.
Yeah.
And she met
Yeah.
Nick.
Yeah.
That one
Yeah.
was fun. She met Nick and that was a whole different story.
Yeah, that's
um,
awesome. She had so many questions.
she had so many questions. But it was kind of cool to be like, oh yeah, she's more like she's just a normal kid. She's a normal kid who's had a transplant. Like life's for her is normal. Like it's just the medical world, but it's normal. And I was like, for her to like be able to kind of see me and be like, look, like this is what can kind of be like what it was
Yeah,
eventually. But to kind of see that she could live like a fairly normal life now that she had a transplant was kind of cool to see that like I was kind of like a role model for her and she got to meet her.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, that was really, really special. I was gonna say too that I wanted to chat with you a bit about life after transplant, and I know it often brings like new beginnings, and one of those was like what Bella was really excited about was knowing that you would be engaged. can you can you tell us about that chapter and what that meant to you and your fiance and how he
Yes,
proposed?
that was definitely a very exciting chapter. We I went so London Hospital does a radiothon. So a year ago in March, we went down for a radiothon that London does, and it's basically to raise money for the hospital. And so we went to that, and I did it. It was 6 o'clock in the morning, no biggie. Finished my radiothon, and all of a sudden Nick was like, "Hey, like let's go out for a walk." It's 6 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to go for a walk. I want breakfast and bed. Like that's where my brain was at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, it's breakfast, bed, and pack the hotel for another like 1 o'clock radio
Yeah,
call.
yeah,
And so we went for a walk down to like they have like a little like nature sanctuary lookout kind of thing that looks over the water. And so no one knew. Like he kept it a secret from even my whole family. No one, nobody knew.
oh,
And so he was like, "Hey, like I took a photo of the sunrise, thinking nothing of it. Like, okay, cool. Like we came to see the sunrise. Let's go back. Like I'm done. Let's go back." And then he was like, let's take a photo together. So he took a photo together and then he videotaped it all. And then that's when he got on one day and opened the box. And he was like, is this what you've been wanting? I was like, yes. And so
Oh, exciting. Oh, look at that. It's beautiful.
that's it. So yeah, we get married this September. So we're in the midst of planning everything and getting
Yeah.
all that figured out. But yeah, no, that's how it all went.
That's amazing. Is there so aside from the excitement and, post-transplant life, is there anything that you would like people to understand that is a part of like post-transplant life for the recipient that you um what part of transplant stays with you forever? Like what are the things you kind of have to be on guard for or continue?
Yeah, so my daily
Yeah.
medications,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not just one and done. I have to take them every single day,
Yeah.
Monday to Sunday to Sunday. Like it's not like it's continuous for the rest of my life. And people don't understand that. Like people go, oh, you just take meds. Like, okay, you're taking meds for a few days. No, 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 no. I am now taking meds for the rest of my life to keep my organs basically so they don't attack my other body.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't become boring, basically, is another word to put it. Like, and my day, some days are good, some days are bad. Like every day is a different day. Like there's good days and there's bad days. Like I get kidney infections, I get this and that. Like it's never, you never
If
know.
you get sicker, you get sicker.
If I get sicker, I get sicker, and no one really gets that. Everyone goes, "Oh, you're just a normal kid." I go, "No, no, I hide it really well."
Still a lot of maintenance and it's like you want to say like correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like and Cindy as well, like jump in, but it's like you want to say like yes, absolutely, I don't have to fear for my life anymore, but I still have to fear,
For my
something
life.
still yeah, like
No way.
yeah, yeah, because you
It's
still
just
have
it's a different set of things that you have to look out for. And I mean, not that I wouldn't change it for all the money in the world. We have her. We've had
Yeah.
28 years of things. We wouldn't have had birthdays, wouldn't have had
I
anniversaries.
became a big sister.
We wouldn't, yes,
Aw,
get a big sister. We wouldn't be planning a wedding. We wouldn't be doing any of those without that. But yes,
right.
it doesn't take everything away. There's still some underlying problems from the syndrome that she was born with that she'll have for the rest of her life. And as you say, it's the medications and just being a little ahead of when they get sick because she
Yeah.
can get sick really fast.
I go from 0 to 10.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
exactly. Yeah.
there's no in between. There's good to within 24 hours, 10 and needing to go to emerge or something. Like there's
Yeah.
no in between. Which
Because they
you
still
got.
consider like post transplant recipient like immune compromised. Like
Yeah.
things.
Oh yeah. I'm still immune compromised. So an average cold is lovely to get.
Yeah, and it can last longer, it can do worse things.
It lasts I think
Careful.
the last one I had lasted about 4 weeks. It was not fun.
No,
But
exactly.
that's because of my weakened immune system, right? Like it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
everyone goes like during the COVID times, everyone's like, well, how are you doing? In my
Okay.
room, watching movies, isolated to myself, sitting on my bed. What else would you like me to say?
Yeah, there's still a lot you have to be so on guard for that it's like everyone kind of has this outside picture of, oh, you got this miraculous miracle
Yeah.
of a transplant. It must be all over for you. It's like, no, there's
No.
still so much to just keep me alive.
Oh
that
yeah.
I'm working my butt off every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Cindy, I wanted to hear from you as a medical mom. I wanted you to like give us some insight into what it was like during this time to support Sarah through such a difficult journey.
Well, I'm sure as you can relate, I learned a long time ago to take things one day at a time because you didn't know what each day was going to bring. And you just, as a mom, you follow your gut feeling. It's never let me down yet. If you think something's not right, it probably is not right. You have to be an advocate for your child. You have to do it kindly and politely, but
Sometimes.
well, most of the time, but I mean, you are aware of what's going on with your child, right? When you know that something's wrong, you have to make sure because we see them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to where a medical professional sees them once a month or once every 3 weeks or whatever you happen to connect with people. So you have to be on top of it. You don't take life for granted, as you both you know that, right? You have to take every day as it's given to you, because with medical kids, you don't know when that's going to change.
Yeah, you always gotta feel like you're on guard, you're one step ahead, and you're the record keeper, you're the tab keeper, you're the mom. It's a whole juggling act that you got to do. That my goodness, you've done an amazing job.
But
Like
the
I
other
said,
end of it is, on top of being a medical mama, the other thing you need to do, and I know you did and I did, is you want them to be as normal as possible. You want them to do the typical go swimming, do dance class, do whatever they want to do, because you want them to be a child first
yeah.
and unwell second, instead of being unwell first.
Yeah, and I think you just answered my next questions, unless you have more. But I was gonna say, like, what advice would you give to parents walking this path with their kiddos with rare disease or transplant or medical fragile child?
Don't look at them as being sick. Like, that's been
No.
my big thing. My goal for Sarah, when she was listed and transplanted, was to make her as normal as possible and allow her to do everything. We didn't put her in a bubble. We didn't say, we didn't isolate her. During COVID we did, and that's the first time I ever felt like I had to be like, wait a minute, now we have to do the extra masking and the extra this, and because I was terrified of COVID and what it could do to her. But up until then, you know what? She went to school, and there's some days that she didn't feel great, but I'm like, oh, go give it a try. If you can't manage, then I'll come and get you, because sometimes they're a little sluggish when they first get up and get going in the morning. Sometimes they don't feel so great, but you give them a little shove and they can get through the day, and they can do the same thing as everybody else's kids. And I think that's just really important, is that I wanted people to see Sarah as Sarah first, not
Yeah,
Sarah who was sick.
yeah,
And like,
exactly.
mom was very good that when I came home on all my meds, we scheduled them that like we have it now great schedule that started when I was little. I do my meds in the morning and my meds at night. And the only thing that was really in the afternoon was if I was on antibiotics.
Yeah, yeah,
But we
yeah,
did them after school or before dance classes. Like no one really saw the medical side of me
yeah,
because I
yeah,
did all meds in the morning and at night. So no one saw anything.
yeah. Completely relatable to that. We with Bella, we got to that point. There is a while there where I don't know if you've ever had to um learn IVs at home for Sarah. Yeah, yeah. I've
Oh
had
yeah.
yeah.
Sarah
I,
had very chronic bladder. She has a megacystic bladder, which she will have for her entire life. So, and when she was little, chronic UTIs were an ongoing challenge, and we ended up on IV antibiotics more than she wasn't. Once again, like, I would pick her up from school. I would hook up her IV. We'd go get a snack. We'd go for a drive, and I'd unhook it and send her to dance class, because she wasn't sick. She just needed that little top up of meds in between. And I'm like, I'm not staying home because you have to have medication.
yeah. I
So
feel
you
like
learn.
yeah, like you literally wrote like a page out of my journal with Bella, like 100%, like same.
Yeah.
Oh, it feels so good to be able to connect with another mom and another patient like Bella, that's just so relatable and so understanding. Like I really hope that out of this conversation today, you guys really understand that just means a whole lot to healing my heart. So thank you for
Well, we're a small breed. I mean, and I don't wish more parents to have to do that. I think it changes changes who you are. I think you appreciate life more.
yeah.
And it wouldn't change the journey that Sarah and I have been on, but it's not without work.
Yeah, exactly. Do either of you have a special story or a special memory from your journey that you'd like to share with us?
I don't know you.
Anything
Well,
that
what are you
stands
gonna
out?
tell?
You go ahead. You go first.
Well, when am I sharing?
So the transplant games,
Oh,
when she was
Yeah.
6, the transplant games were in London, Ontario, and we
Okay.
took her to the transplant games, and all Sarah wanted to do was meet somebody like her. And we went to this great big board with all of these, how many of this transplant, how many of that, and she was just angry with her little arms crossed because the woman that was at the booth didn't have anybody that was like her.
Oh.
And she so badly wanted to be like somebody else. And she was just, and she was fine, and she had so much fun, and we did the games, and we met all kinds of amazing people and all the rest of it. But it was just, she just wanted to fit in like the rest of the world, right? Just sometimes hard when you're a little different.
Yeah, there's definitely more common transplants like kidneys
Yeah,
and I think liver. I don't
heart.
even
Art,
heart. I was just gonna say it always blew my mind that heart was more common
common.
than like bowels or something. I'm just like that blows my mind, because
The most common
Bella,
ones are like heart, lungs, and kidneys,
Yeah,
really.
heart, lungs, and
yeah,
kidneys. Yeah.
yeah. Like I know when I spoke with the team, um, oh, you probably I it's escaping my mind, but the team that they work with the transplant surgeons.
Yeah,
So they hadn't, I think it had been something like 9 or 13 years before they had seen another bowel transplant like Bella's. Like it's so rare.
it's weird. That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's wild,
my brain's
especially.
like, poof.
Yeah. I was like, how can a heart, like you need a heart to survive. Like some people can survive off a TPN or like
Yeah.
they can't manage their bowels. You'd think that that would be more common, but no, they're not.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I completely forgot about that one from the games.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So in closing, I just want to ask one more question. If either of you have some advice you'd like to give families that are navigating medical challenges and specifically transplant, if they're in waiting or if they've just received one or a family member's just received a transplant.
I'd say just take it day by day. Every day's different.
Mhm.
Every day's like take it day by day because you never know what day. Like there'll be good days and there'll be bad days, or there'll be really great days. Like you'll take. I know for me it was like 2 step forward, 1 step back, or 3 step forward, 1 step back. Like it was like, oh, we're doing good, and then like back again to like blood work and stuff like that. Like every day's different. Just don't focus on it. Just be like, okay,
Yeah.
different day. Like everything will be fine on a different day. Like it's not gonna be like every day won't be the same, basically. Like in the transplant world, no day is the same. Trust me. I have those still to
Yeah.
this day. But like take it day by day, especially in a hospital, because every day is different and
And to try and be positive.
yeah,
Try and find something, excuse me, positive out of the day, whether it's
go for a walk.
you go for a walk, a conversation you have with your child, if it's a parent in a child situation. Like I just tried to find something that made the day happy because sometimes, as we all know, it can be a really tough day. It can be a hard day. And just finding that small window of something that made you smile. I mean, you and Bella did it better than anybody.
Yeah.
You always had fun. But I admired that when I saw you, and I would go looking for them because when you've walked that walk and you've spent months and months and months in a hospital, it's sometimes really hard to not be bitter and not be envious of the other people that are still living their life while you're stuck in that environment because people don't
Yeah.
realize until you've done it longer than 5 days in a row
Yeah.
that the world carries on without you.
And they get
Yeah.
stressed in the hospital.
And so when I watched you and Bella and you made things fun and joyful and got to go out for a walk
Put
and
googly eyes around the
you know,
hospital.
I can
Sick kids.
remember at Sick Kids, finally, I met a couple other mamas that were there, and when she was little, and we were waiting for transplant, and we were finally like, can we go for a walk? And they're like, yep. And so we headed off for a walk with our strollers and our babies and our feed pumps and the whole 9 yards. And
Hook them up to our
we
bassinet.
said to one of the nurses, we're going for a very long walk around the block. And they're like, okay. We ended up at the Eaton Center.
We may
We
or
did
may not have done that as well.
we did actually tell, I won't name any nurses, but and you happen to know the nurse that I'm talking about. But anyways, we may have told them what we were doing, but so they didn't get in trouble. We took the onus on ourselves. We're like, we're just going for a big long walk around the block because you have to get out.
Oh, you do, and they're so good too. There are some like restrictions they have to tell you, and you
Yeah.
have to abide by. But it can really get so dark when you're inside those walls day after day, month after month, and for some people, year after year.
Yep.
And I remember the switch for me really came like I was very just like you'd said, like so bitter and so drained, especially when Bella like she was an infant, right? Or a toddler. She couldn't talk, she couldn't tell me her feelings. And it was just like I could see all these other kids enjoying their life, doing things she couldn't do, like eating.
Yeah.
And it would just it's just horrible to live like that and then live like you're living in a jail. But the switch really came for me was when Bella could like talk with me and like share her feelings with me as she grew older, and I knew she was the one going through it Yet she was the one finding the joy and sharing the joy. And I'm like, oh, okay, I need to pump the brakes on my little, dreary, always me attitude and be like, all right, she can smile and she's the one going through this. I can too. And so,
100%.
yeah, yeah,
We got to
definitely.
know hospital day passes really well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the little sneak outs. I know. I don't know. I guess I can't get in trouble for this now, but there would be times, when Bella would be on oxygen and there's restrictions. You can't just go out on oxygen, but we might have ventured a little farther than we were allowed to.
Sometimes you just have
Sometimes you
to.
bend the rules a little bit.
Yeah, we bet.
But
I'm happy we did. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and just in closing, like what would I know you can add to this for me as well, but as both like organ donation advocates, what would you say is like the number one best way to advocate for people and awareness? I would say talking about it. So many people just having that conversation, knowing what all the information around being a potential donor, or
Mhm.
your family members just saying like, hey, like if anything happens to me, I want to be a donor. Just even that alone is lots. What else would you guys say
yeah, like
is
it's a simple conversation. Yes, it's a hard conversation. It's
Mhm.
very hard conversation because it's talking about stuff in the future, but it's a simple conversation that takes 2 minutes to let your other family members know your wishes. As I've told people, it's a natural conversation at my family table. Like it's natural for us to, well, because we've lived it. Like we've lived it, we know the impact, we all know our wishes, and that like it takes 2 minutes. Like it's a simple click, 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 and by doing that click, it saves someone's life eventually down the road. And as I said, it's a simple conversation. 2 minutes, just let your family know. And if you don't want to say it, just say, hey, there's a piece of paper somewhere in this cabinet. When you get a chance, can you go read it? It's got my wishes on it. Like this is what I want. Like I don't want to talk to you guys about it, but this is where my wishes are. For when you guys know if people don't want to say it, they can write it down on a piece of paper for when something happens that people can go to and look at later down the road and be like, this is what he's written down or he or she has written down on a piece of paper. These are their wishes. We have to follow them. Like it's
yeah,
simple.
and the
It's the
conversation.
It's the education.
Yeah,
That's
the education and the conversation is so important because there's been multiple medical like a part of Bella's like transplant team that have told me like they can't always just like have this person's wallet, or they're not old enough to have the donor card, and you need that knowledge in the family of the next of kin when you're in that sad but immediate situation.
Yeah.
as
Yeah,
I said, it takes 2 minutes.
yeah, yeah,
What else do you do in 2 minutes? Tie your shoes? Like it
yeah,
takes that long.
yeah. And it's so important to just start the conversation, have the conversation, talk about it, share your feelings on it, advocate. Very important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to say, unless there's anything else you guys want to chat about, I want to
I
say
don't think
thank
so.
you for joining
No
us today
problem.
and sharing your powerful story. I'm so happy we have connected and that we can share and inspire other people and give hope to other organ donation families and recipients.
Thank you.
Thank
It's life changing for people because they see what these children go through and they see that they manage to have a transplant, and whether it's a short period of time or a long period of time. I mean, we miss Bella dearly, but the fact that you're keeping her memory alive and the fact that for a period of time she enjoyed all the benefits of having a transplant.
Yes. Oh, thank you for that, Cindy. That means a lot. That really means a lot. Oh, thank you guys.
No problem.
Aw. So, any plans for the rest of the day? Are you taking
We're
breaks?
having an ice storm in our area, so we've all
Oh,
had some pretty quiet days. Yesterday it's supposed to last all weekend, so I hear there's no
wow.
hydro at my house, so it's takeout for dinner in my world.
Oh no. Oh my goodness.
But
That's
yeah,
not good.
that's
We've had
okay. I
a
don't
storm.
have to
Yeah.
cook.
We've had a storm here in Saskatchewan, but it's north of us, so we're good. We're like at -5 and calm and just
We're
fine.
most of it was north of us, but we're getting the tail end. I don't know why there's nothing happening here, but I have no power. They said it'll be a
Mine keeps
couple of
flickering.
hours. Ours keeps flickering here. I keep watching the lights
Oh,
above us. Every once in a while they flicker, but and it's not overly cold here, so it's not like it's the dead of
yeah.
winter and it's happening. So that's a good thing. But
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's busy wedding planning, so she has to go back and, revisit bridesmaid dress
Bridesmaid
colors.
colors?
So that's what we're doing.
All right. Okay, well, I'll let you get to it. Keep in touch, Sarah. I'd love
I
to talk to
will.
you again sometime. Maybe like about wedding
That's
excitement.
Yes,
Need to
that's
know
fine.
more on that. Awesome. Okay, have a good day, you guys. Thanks
You as
again.
well.
Thank you.
You bet. Bye.
Bye.